Hey guys, tonight we are going to wander into something so small, so subtle, so quiet. And yet, it shapes every single turn of your life. Imagine a ripple that rises in your mind before you even know you're thinking, before you even notice you want something, before you even open your mouth. It's like a secret current running under the ocean of your days. Nobody sees it, but it steers the whole tide. Without noticing, you've been following it all along. And if that sounds mysterious enough to make you curious, well, good. Because once you glimpse it, you might never look at your choices the same way again. And hey, before we drift any deeper, could you do me a gentle favor? Drop a comment below with where in the world you're listening from and what time of day or night it is for you. I love seeing how this little circle connects across different places and hours. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now dim the lights. Maybe let a fan hum softly in the background and settle in. Tonight, let's step slowly into the still water, where karma begins, where the self is born and can dissolve, and where if you can truly see, you'll never again feel like a victim of fate. You know how sometimes you walk into a room and instantly feel uneasy, though nothing has happened yet. Nobody said anything. The lights are the same. The chairs haven't moved. But something in you already decided how the moment feels. That's not random. That's not fate. That's what Buddhists call a mind formation. A mind formation isn't a thought you can point at. It isn't a bold emotion like joy or anger that bursts into your awareness. It's quieter, subtler, like the whisper before the word, the twitch before the movement, the seed before the sprout. It happens so quickly and so far below the surface that by the time you notice yourself thinking or feeling, the mind formation has already chosen the flavor of your experience. Picture it like this. Imagine an underwater current. You don't see it from above, but it can push a giant ship off course over time. That's what a mind formation does with your life. You think you're steering the wheel, but often you're just following the pull of a current you never knew was there. Now, why does this matter? Because if you don't know, these currents exist, you might spend your whole life blaming the waves. You'll think, that person made me angry. That situation broke my heart. That job stressed me out. But the truth is, what triggered you outside was only half the story. The rest was already waiting inside, quietly shaping how you would react. Let's make this simple. Think about the last time you got mad at someone. Maybe it was a driver cutting you off on the highway. You felt your blood pressure spike, your jaw tighten, your foot pressing harder on the gas. You probably thought, he made me furious. But pause for a second. Did he really create your anger? Or did the anger sprout because a seed was already there lying in your unconscious, waiting for the right bump to awaken it? That seed is the mind formation, and it doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't wait for you to say yes. It just rises silently like steam curling off a cup of coffee. Here's another example, a gentler one. Someone compliments you. Hey, you look good today. Depending on your mind formation, you might smile and feel warm, or you might instantly feel suspicious. What do they really mean by that? Or maybe you shrink embarrassed, unable to accept kindness. The words were the same. The world outside was the same. But the mind formation you carried inside filtered the moment like tinted glasses. That's why two people can sit through the exact same experience, say a rainy afternoon. One finds it cozy, romantic, like a soft soundtrack for reading. The other feels depressed, restless, trapped. The rain didn't change, the umbrella didn't change, only the inner formations did. And here's the tricky part, most of us live our whole lives without seeing these undercurrents. We think we're free making choices, deciding paths. But what if those choices were already tilted before they reached your conscious mind? What if freedom starts earlier, long before you raise your voice, hit send on that text, or slam the door? The Buddha pointed directly to this subtle place. He said action, speech, even conscious thought are not where karma begins. Karma begins in these hidden stirrings, these mind formations. Because once a formation arises, it plants a seed. That seed influences your mood, your tone, your words, your actions, and eventually, the entire direction of your life. If you've ever wondered, why do I keep repeating the same mistakes even when I know better? This is why. You're not fighting with your present choices. You're wrestling with old mind formations that keep replaying like background music. You change partners but repeat the same pattern. You leave one job only to meet the same conflict in another. You swear you'll react calmly next time, but the same temper bursts out. It's not because you're weak. It's because the current is still moving underneath. And this realization can feel both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it means you've never really been as in control as you thought. But liberating because once you learn to notice these mind formations, you suddenly have a chance to step out of the current. You don't have to keep floating the same way forever. So tonight, as you lie here listening, I invite you to play a little game with your own awareness. Notice not just the thoughts that come, not just the emotions, but the whispers right before them. The faint urge to reach for your phone. The tiny pull to rehearse a conversation. The soft flicker of wanting or resisting that shows up before you even name it. These are the mind formations. And if you can see them, just see them without jumping in, without chasing or suppressing, you've already changed the game. You've already loosened the grip of karma. Because the moment you witness a formation, it's no longer running the show unseen. Take a breath. Feel the stillness around you. You don't need to fix anything. Just notice what's moving in the quiet places of your mind. That's where all the real beginnings are. And as we continue, you'll see how these mind formations don't just shape your moods, but how they secretly sculpt the karma you carry forward. Because karma doesn't start with the things you do, it begins in these invisible sparks inside. So let's step into that mystery next. How the tiniest formation can grow into the karma that shapes your whole destiny. Think about this: two people stuck in traffic on the same highway. One grips the steering wheel tight, cursing under their breath, eyes darting from lane to lane like a cornered animal. The other leans back, rolls down the window a little, lets the late afternoon air brush their cheek, maybe even hums along with the radio. Same cars, same traffic, same endless red brake lights stretching out like a necklace across the asphalt. So why does one person suffer while the other stays calm? The difference isn't out there, it's in here. It's the mind formation. A mind formation works like a lens. You don't see the lens, you just see through it. And depending on what kind of lens you're wearing, the same world can look unbearable, neutral, or even beautiful. Let's bring it closer. Imagine your phone buzzes with a text. We need to talk. Now, depending on the formation that rises in you, this could mean, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Finally, they want to resolve something. Or simply, okay, let's see what happens. The words are identical. But one formation stirs anxiety, another stirs hope, and a third stirs calm. That's how quickly the inner current colors reality. And the real kicker: you usually don't notice this happening. By the time you feel the anxiety or the anger, the formation has already scripted your reaction. You didn't choose the emotion, you were handed it by something deeper. Buddhist teachers often compare this to planting seeds in the soil of your consciousness. Every little irritation, every burst of kindness, every fearful thought leaves behind a seed. Most days those seeds lie dormant. But the right conditions, a careless comment, a stressful deadline, a memory triggered by a smell suddenly waters that seed. And in a flash, the seed becomes a reaction. Have you ever surprised yourself with your own reaction? Like you thought you'd be patient, but instead, you snapped, or you thought you'd be detached, but you found yourself deeply hurt. That wasn't the present moment deciding for you. That was a mind formation planted who knows how long ago, sprouting at just the right time. Here's a story I love. A monk once asked his master, "Why do I keep getting angry even though I practice mindfulness every day?" The master picked up a cup of tea and said, "Because when someone nudges your cup, what spills out is whatever you've been filling it with." That's mind formations in a nutshell. You can polish the outside of the cup, smile, sit calmly, but when life jostles you, the liquid inside reveals what was always there. And that's why noticing these formations matters so much. Because if you don't, you'll keep mistaking the nudge for the cause instead of the spill. Now here's where I'd love to hear from you. If something in this part of the story has already made you pause, maybe a memory, maybe a yes, that's me moment. Would you drop it in the comments? Not just for me, but because your insight might be exactly what another listener needs to read tonight. Let's go a little deeper. Mind formations don't just color your emotions, they shape your choices. For example, if your formation is suspicion, you'll hesitate before trusting anyone, even when trust is safe. Makusuma. If your formation is craving, you'll chase what you don't need. Filling closets, filling calendars, but never really filling the ache inside. Mahasumushi. If your formation is gratitude, even a simple breakfast feels like a blessing, and the day shines brighter without needing anything extra. See how powerful this is. A mind formation isn't just an inner whisper. It's an architect of destiny. It guides what you buy, how you love when you walk away, and even how you interpret a stranger's glance. And what's dangerous is how fast it happens. You don't get time to hold a board meeting in your head. You don't get to line up all your rational reasons. The formation pops and you react. That's why so many people say things like, "I don't know what got into me," or "I wish I could take that back." What got into you was simply a mind formation, one you didn't notice until it was already steering your behavior. So where does that leave us? It leaves us with an invitation to slow down just enough to catch the current before it sweeps us away. To notice not just what we did, but the tiny spark that rose right before we did it. Because the truth is, freedom doesn't start with the action, it starts with seeing the spark. And once you see it, you suddenly have a choice: follow it or let it fade. Now, if a mind formation is the spark, then karma is the fire it ignites. In the next part, let's explore how those quiet sparks don't just shape reactions in the moment, they ripple forward, weaving the unseen patterns of your karma. When most people hear the word karma, they picture something dramatic. You cheat someone, and years later, you lose your job. You shout in anger, and somehow, the universe sends you a lesson back. But the Buddha's teaching is subtler, almost unsettling. Karma doesn't wait for you to slam a door or raise your voice or even press send on that risky text. Karma begins much earlier, at the very moment a mind formation stirs. Think about a matchstick. The flame doesn't appear the second you drop it onto the floor. It appears the instant friction sparks. That first strike is the real beginning. In the same way, karma doesn't start with the action. It starts with the spark, the tiny, almost invisible flicker of mind. When a thought of greed stirs even before you act on it, the seed of karma is planted. When a faint resentment rises even before you say a word, a groove is etched into your consciousness. These are like footprints in soft soil. They may not be visible to the world, but they press deeper into your path with every step. The scary part: you can be sitting completely still, outwardly calm, maybe even smiling, and still be planting karmic seeds. Nobody else sees it. Nobody else hears it. But your mind formation is already sketching the outlines of your future reactions, your habits, your destiny. That's why the Buddha said karma comes from body, speech, and mind. And the mind part doesn't just mean conscious thought. It means these hidden formations that shape thought, speech, and action before you even realize it. Here's an image that might help. Imagine carrying a backpack, but instead of books or clothes, it's filled with seeds. Every mind formation you've ever had: anger, love, jealousy, kindness, is a seed tossed into that bag. Most of the time, you don't notice them. But when the conditions are right, sunlight of attention, rain of circumstance, those seeds sprout. And once they sprout, you don't get to choose whether they bear fruit. The angry seed will blossom into angry fruit. The kind seed will blossom into kind fruit. It doesn't matter what you meant to do. Later karma was already growing. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "I was only thinking it"? It's not like I said it out loud. But here's the catch, even unspoken, that mind formation still left a trace. It still shaped your inner world. Every time you replay that jealousy, your heart gets a little tighter. Every time you rehearse that anger in silence, your nervous system primes itself for battle. The world may not hear it, but your body, your mind, your karma already do. Now don't let this frighten you, because if karma starts with such tiny sparks, it means you don't need to wait for big actions to change your life. You can start right here with a breath, with a pause, with a simple moment of noticing. Even when an angry seed stirs, if you can see it clearly, anger is rising without feeding it, without watering it. The seed dries up. It doesn't grow into a habit. It doesn't weave into karma. It ends before it begins. And that's the miracle. You don't have to undo a mountain of past actions. You just need to notice a single mind formation in the present moment. Right there, karma is cut at the root. I want to pause for a second and invite you into this reflection. Has there ever been a time you caught yourself just in time, right before you said something harsh, right before you acted on impulse, and you pulled back? If so, that moment was a victory over karma. Would you share a story like that in the comments? Your small moment of awareness might inspire someone else tonight. Let's ground this with a story. A layperson once asked a Zen teacher, "Why do my good deeds never erase my suffering?" The teacher smiled and replied, "Because your deeds are like painting over cracks in a wall. But the cracks keep growing from beneath." That's what happens when we try to fix our lives at the level of action, but ignore the level of formation. It's like mowing the grass but never pulling out the roots. Only by seeing and calming the formation can you prevent new cracks from forming. That's how karma is truly undone, not by piling up good deeds on top of hidden reactions, but by noticing and letting go at the source. So if every mind formation is a seed, and every seed has the power to shape karma, then the question becomes, what seeds are you planting right now in this very breath? Because in the next part, we'll explore something even subtler. How catching these seeds pausing right at the moment they stir creates a freedom most people never taste. In other words, freedom doesn't come from doing more or trying harder. It comes from noticing the spark before it turns into fire. In the next section, let's discover what it feels like to stop a mind formation, the instant it rises, and why that pause may be the doorway to true liberation. Imagine for a moment that you're sitting quietly in a room. The lamp is warm, the air is still, maybe a faint hum of the refrigerator in the background. Everything seems calm. Then, without warning, something stirs inside. A flicker of irritation, a sudden craving, a whisper of doubt. It hasn't even formed into a thought yet. But if you pay attention, You can feel it, the very first spark of a mind formation. This is the crossroads. Most of us miss this moment. By the time we notice what's happening, the spark has already grown into a flame. We've already said, the sharp words slam the door, hit send on the message we regret. And then we look back and think, why didn't I stop myself? The truth is, you can't stop yourself once the fire is burning. You have to see it at the spark. Stopping a mind formation doesn't mean fighting it. It doesn't mean forcing it down, pretending it isn't there. In fact, the harder you push against it, the stronger it often becomes, like trying not to think of a pink elephant and suddenly your whole mind is pink elephants. Stopping in the Buddhist sense means something gentler, noticing the formation as it rises, and then refusing to feed it. Think of it like clouds in the sky. You don't chase them. You don't try to glue them in place. You simply notice, a cloud is passing. And then you let it drift. When anger stirs, stopping means anger is here. When craving stirs, craving is here. When fear stirs, fear is here. No judgment, no suppression. Just a calm awareness that refuses to be swept away. The Buddha compared this to seeing a thief enter your house. If you recognize him at the door, he has no power. But if you ignore him, he sneaks in and robs you blind. Mind formations are the same. The simple act of recognition disarms them. And that recognition opens a space, a pause between the spark and the fire. That pause is freedom. Here's something you might try tonight, right now, as you listen. Feel your breath. Notice the rise and fall of your chest. And then turn your attention, not to the big thoughts or big feelings, but to the faint whispers just beneath them. Maybe a pull to check your phone. Maybe an urge to replay a conversation. Maybe a flicker of resistance like, I don't want to sit still. Just see it. Say softly in your mind, I see you. And then let it float away like smoke fading in sunlight. You don't need to push it out. You don't need to invite it to stay. You simply refuse to climb onto the train. If you've ever had a moment where you caught yourself right at the beginning of irritation or craving and chose not to follow it, I'd love for you to share it in the comments. Your story of a small pause might remind someone else that they're capable of pausing too. Stopping a mind formation doesn't mean you become cold or detached. It means you stop being a puppet. You're no longer yanked around by invisible strings. Imagine walking through your day with that kind of freedom. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and instead of rage, you simply notice the spark and let it go. A craving rises for something you don't need, and instead of spending or binging, you breathe, smile, and watch it drift. The world is the same. The events are the same. But you are no longer a leaf blown around by the wind. And there's a deeper gift here. Every time you stop a formation before it grows, you don't just prevent suffering in the moment. You also weaken the seed for the future. It's like refusing to water a weed. Eventually, it withers. Over time, your inner garden changes. Old patterns fade. New seeds of calm, compassion, patience start to grow stronger. This is how stopping becomes transformation. It might feel impossible at first. Formations rise so quickly, so automatically, it feels like you never stood a chance. But the more you practice noticing, the slower they seem. It's like replaying a movie in slow motion. You start to catch the tiny details you missed before. And once you see the moment, you can step out of it. One teacher described it this way: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and our growth. That space is created the instant you recognize a mind formation. So stopping isn't about control. It isn't about clenching your teeth or forcing your mind to behave. It's about presence, about catching the spark and letting it fade instead of fanning it into a flame. And in that gentle stopping, karma loses its grip. Reactions lose their chains. You step slowly but surely into freedom. But here's a puzzle. Not every mind formation looks dangerous. Some wear masks of kindness, of morality, even of spirituality. In the next section, let's explore these subtle disguises, the beautiful formations that can trap us just as surely as anger or fear. Not every mind formation looks ugly. Some arrive dressed in anger, jealousy, or fear, easy to recognize, easy to dislike. But others come wearing silk robes. They bow politely. They smile sweetly. They whisper words of kindness, of morality, of spirituality. And those are the trickiest ones. Imagine someone who always acts generous. They donate money. They give their time. They smile in public. But inside, the seed driving them might not be compassion. It might be the craving for approval. It might be fear of being judged. It might be the subtle need to be seen as a good person. From the outside, the deed looks pure. But inside, the formation is tangled. And over time, that hidden craving carves grooves just as deep as any anger or greed. This is why the Buddha warned us, karma doesn't just come from bad actions. It comes from the invisible motives, the hidden formations that rise before the action. Even good actions can tie you up if they're driven by a mind formation of ego. Think about this in daily life. You bite your tongue in a heated conversation. From the outside, it looks like patience. But if inside you're burning with fear of rejection, that's the seed you're watering. Or maybe you post something inspiring online. From the outside, it looks like sharing wisdom. But if deep down, you crave being admired, that's the formation steering your hand. The act is the same, but the karma is different. Why does this matter? Because the subtle formations are the hardest to see. We easily catch anger or jealousy. They're loud, messy, inconvenient. But the beautiful formations are like actors who play their roles too well. They convince even you. And when you don't question them, they quietly weave the stickiest karmic threads. Here's a story. A monk once asked his master, "I've practiced compassion for years, but I still feel restless. Why?" The master replied, "Because your compassion is mixed with ambition. You want to be someone compassionate. That small twist, wanting to be seen as kind, turned the whole practice into another mask of ego. And this is the danger. Even on the path of mindfulness, even in meditation, the mind formations can slip in, dressed as virtue. Now I want to invite you into this reflection. Have you ever caught yourself doing something good only to realize later your motive was mixed, maybe wanting approval or fearing judgment? If that rings true, you're not alone. Share it in the comments, not as confession but as connection, because admitting it might free someone else to look more honestly too. So how do we deal with these subtle masks? The answer isn't guilt. It isn't scolding yourself for not being pure enough. That just creates more formations of shame and striving. Instead, the answer is the same as always: awareness. To pause, to notice, to whisper gently to yourself, this kindness is mixed with craving. This patience is mixed with fear. And then, to let it be seen without judgment. Because once you see the mask, it loses its power. The actor is revealed. The formation can no longer trick you into thinking it's your true self. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing the image of being good, you naturally become good. When you stop clinging to the idea of being spiritual, you naturally live more deeply. When you stop striving to look compassionate, compassion flows on its own. It's like trying to sleep. The harder you force it, the further it runs. But when you stop trying, sleep comes naturally. In the same way, when you stop feeding formations of ego, wrapped in goodness, true goodness emerges, effortless, uncalculated, free. So tonight, as you rest, ask yourself, which masks have my formations been wearing? Have I been chasing approval even in kindness? Have I been afraid of judgment, even in patience? Have I been clinging to an image of spirituality even in my practice? Don't answer with guilt. Answer with a smile, a breath, a quiet acknowledgement. Because the moment you see the mask begins to dissolve. And in that dissolving, you step closer to a place beyond masks altogether, where goodness is no longer an act, but a natural fragrance of your being. But if even the beautiful formations can bind us, how do we live free at all? The answer lies in learning to let these formations fade like smoke in sunlight, so they leave no trace. In the next section, we'll explore what it means to live when the formations themselves fall quiet. Picture yourself by a quiet lake at dawn. The surface is still so still that the clouds above are mirrored perfectly in the water. You toss a small pebble and ripples spread out, breaking the reflection. That's what a mind formation does inside you, a ripple across the calm lake of awareness. Now imagine not tossing the pebble. Imagine what it feels like when the ripples never rise, when the lake stays clear, when the formations fall silent. This is not emptiness in a cold or scary way. It's emptiness like a sky free of clouds, open, vast, peaceful. For most of us, silence feels foreign. We're so used to the chatter of thoughts, the tug of emotions, the hum of urges. We mistake that noise for life itself. But when the formations grow quiet, you realize life doesn't disappear, it becomes more vivid. The sound of wind in the trees, the smell of morning coffee, the warmth of sunlight through a window. Without the filter of constant formations, these simple things shine. It's like finally cleaning a dusty pair of glasses. The world was always bright. You just couldn't see it clearly. When mind formations fall silent, freedom appears. Not freedom in the dramatic sense of doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But freedom in the deeper sense, you no longer have to react. You no longer have to chase. You no longer have to defend, prove, argue, or grasp. A pause opens up. In that pause, you can breathe. And in that breath, you realize you're not a puppet anymore. You're no longer tugged around by unseen strings. This silence doesn't mean you become passive. You still laugh, you still love, you still care. But your laughter isn't forced. Your love isn't clinging. Your care isn't driven by fear of being unloved. When formations fall quiet, actions flow naturally like a river finding the sea without maps or effort. It might sound impossible. How can my mind ever be silent? But silence doesn't mean no thought ever appears again. It means when a thought does appear, it passes like a bird across the sky, no trace left behind. A craving arises. You see it, you let it pass. A flash of anger rises. You see it, you let it pass. They don't leave ripples. They don't leave scars. That's the silence we're talking about. I wonder, have you ever touched a moment of this silence? Maybe sitting by the ocean, or walking in the woods, or just waking up before the world starts buzzing. If you have, would you share that memory in the comments? Hearing where others have felt silence might remind someone tonight that this peace is possible for them too. When formations fall silent, even suffering changes. Pain still happens, your body aches, life brings losses. But pain no longer automatically turns into suffering. The silent mind can feel pain without spiraling into resistance, fear, or despair. It's like rain falling on a lake. In a restless lake, the ripples multiply, crashing into each other. In a silent lake, the rain just sinks in one drop, then gone. And in this silence, something extraordinary reveals itself. The self. The me you've been protecting, proving polishing, loosens its grip. Because so much of that me was built out of formations I want. I fear. I need to be seen. When those voices quiet down, what remains is not nothingness, but a lightness. Being without burden. It feels less like I am someone and more like I am alive. Life itself flowing without the heavy narration. This is why many teachers say true practice isn't about adding, it's about subtracting. Not building new masks, new identities, new achievements, but gently letting the noise fall away until silence reveals the natural brightness underneath. And the more you rest in that silence, the easier it is to return to it. It becomes a familiar home, a place you can step into even in the middle of chaos. Here's a simple practice. Next time you notice yourself pulled by a strong reaction, pause. Take one breath. Ask quietly, what if I don't follow this? Let the formation drift. Notice the silence that comes in its place. It may only last a second, but that second is pure freedom. And over time, those seconds string together like beads on a thread until silence becomes the ground of your life. When mind formations fall silent, you don't lose yourself. You finally meet yourself without distortion. You don't lose life. You finally taste it fully without filters. And in that space, you see you were never broken. You were never incomplete. The silence was always waiting beneath the ripples. But here's the next step. What happens when we live our daily lives? Work, family, traffic builds through this lens of silence. Can the ordinary moments of grocery shopping and dishwashing also become places of freedom? In the next section, let's explore how silence in the mind transforms everyday life. It's one thing to feel silence when you're on a retreat, sitting by a lake or lying in bed with headphones on. But the real question is, what about when you're in line at the grocery store, your cart full? The person ahead of you fumbling with coupons and you're late for a meeting. Can silence live there too? Or when your child asks for the 100th time, can we go out now? And your patience is already stretched thin since silence, breathe in that moment. This is where the practice meets real life. Silence in everyday life doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities. It doesn't mean you stop caring about time bills or people. It means that while life is buzzing, your inner lake remains still. You still swipe your card at the register, you still answer your child, you still pay the bill, but you don't let the ripples of irritation or panic take over. The outside world stays busy, but inside, the water is clear. Here's an example. You're driving home from work, traffic crawling. A horn blares behind you. Instead of the usual spike of anger, you pause. You feel the spark of irritation start to rise and then you see it. Here it comes. And because you see it, you don't fan it. The horn becomes just a sound, not a personal attack. Traffic becomes just traffic, not a punishment. You keep breathing. You keep moving forward. That silence, right in the middle of rush hour. Or picture washing dishes, soap bubbles, warm water, plate after plate. Normally the mind spins. Why am I always the one doing this? I have so much else to do. But if you let the mind rest, if you simply feel the water, watch the bubbles breathe with each movement, suddenly silence fills the sink with you. The chore becomes a meditation. It's not about escaping life. It's about living life without being trapped in constant commentary. And this is where silence becomes powerful. Because life doesn't happen in meditation halls or retreat centers. Life happens in commutes, conversations, chores, laughter, and arguments. If silence can live there, then silence can live anywhere. Have you ever felt a surprising moment of peace in an ordinary setting, like folding laundry, sipping coffee, or walking the dog? If so, share it in the comments. Your story might remind someone else that peace isn't only found on mountaintops, it's hidden in their daily life too. When silence enters everyday life, even conflict changes. Someone snaps at you. Instead of snapping back, you hear the silence between their words. You respond calmly, or maybe you don't respond at all. And the cycle of conflict breaks right there. When silence enters work, the deadlines don't crush you as much. Yes, pressure exists, but silence gives you space to breathe, to think clearly, to act without panic. When silence enters family life, small annoyances no longer balloon into arguments. You notice the spark, you let it fade, and the evening stays peaceful. It doesn't mean you become perfect. You'll still lose patience sometimes. You'll still feel irritation. But with silence in your toolkit, you recover faster. Instead of hours of anger, maybe it's just a few breaths. Instead of saying words you regret, maybe you catch yourself halfway. Over time, those little recoveries add up. They reshape your habits. They transform the way you live, not in theory, but in dishes, traffic, conversations, and bills. And here's the hidden gift. Silence makes ordinary moments sacred. A walk to the mailbox becomes a meditation. Cooking dinner becomes an act of presence. Even scrolling your phone can become a chance to notice your breath, your posture, your state of mind. Life doesn't have to change for silence to appear. Silence changes the way you live life. So tonight, as you listen, think of one ordinary thing you'll do tomorrow. Driving, cooking, laundry. Ask yourself, what would it feel like to do this with silence? Not forcing anything, not chasing enlightenment. Just doing the task while letting your inner lake stay calm. Try it once, just once, and see how even the most mundane moment can open a door to freedom. But silence in daily life leads us to an even deeper question: if the world outside can stay the same, while inside we grow free, then what exactly is this world we keep reacting to? In the next section, let's explore how our mind formations shape not just our moods, but the very world we think we see. Have you ever noticed how two people can live through the same event, but walk away with two completely different stories? One person sees opportunity, the other sees disaster. One person feels loved, the other feels neglected. The outer facts are the same, but the inner world is painted differently. That paintbrush is the mind formation. We like to believe we're seeing reality as it is. But the truth is, we're seeing reality as our formations allow. Every suspicion, every fear, every longing acts like a colored lens. Through it, the world bends to match what's already inside us. If you carry a formation of doubt, even kindness looks suspicious. If you carry a formation of control, even peaceful situations feel threatening. If you carry a formation of gratitude, even small annoyances seem lighter, softened by perspective. It's not the world making you feel this way. It's the formation deciding how you'll interpret the world. Think of it like wearing tinted glasses. The glasses don't announce themselves. They don't whisper, "Hey, I'm green." You just assume the world really looks that way. That's how mind formations work. You don't think I'm seeing through fear right now. You think the world is scary. You don't think I'm reacting through a wound of rejection. You think people always abandon me. The formation quietly paints reality and you take the painting as truth. Here's a story. A man walks into a party. He hears people laughing across the room. If his formation is insecurity, he instantly thinks, they're laughing at me. If his formation is joy, he thinks, what a happy crowd. The laughter was neutral, but his formation turned it into a story. And isn't that what happens all the time? The world offers neutral facts. Our mind formations weave them into meaning. And then we live inside that meaning as if it's the only reality. Now pause with me. Have you ever realized, maybe much later, that the way you saw a situation wasn't the truth, but just your interpretation? If so, share that story in the comments. Your honesty might remind someone else tonight that their world too is shaped more by their mind than by outside events. This isn't just psychology, it's the root of Buddhist teaching. Because once you see that the world you suffer in is partly self-created, you gain freedom. You don't have to change the weather, the economy, or other people's opinions to feel peace. You only need to see the lens you're wearing. If anger is the lens, the whole world looks offensive. If compassion is the lens, the same world looks softer, kinder, easier to bear. The outer facts don't change, but your experience transforms completely. Think about relationships. Someone you love doesn't text back. Through the lens of fear you spiral, they don't care about me. Something is wrong. Through the lens of patience you shrug, they're probably busy. Same silence, different world. Or think about work. Your boss gives you feedback. Through the lens of insecurity, it feels like an attack. Through the lens of growth, it feels like an opportunity. Same words, different world. This is why seeing mind formations is so crucial. Because until you do, you'll believe your painted version of reality is the reality. You'll argue, defend, suffer all, while forgetting. You're not fighting the world, you're fighting your own lens. But once you glimpse the lens, everything loosens. The story loses its grip. The world opens wider, richer, softer. Here's the beauty, you don't have to force yourself to think positive. You don't have to paste affirmations over your pain. You simply need to see, this is fear coloring the world. This is gratitude coloring the world. The moment you see the painter, you stop confusing the painting with reality. And that's when true freedom begins. Not when the world changes, but when your vision clears. So tonight I invite you to look gently at your own world. Notice the moments when you feel certain. This is how it is. Ask yourself, what formation might be tinting this view? You may be surprised how much softer reality becomes when you peel away the lens. And if our formations can paint the entire world, then what happens when those old patterns keep repeating themselves over and over like a script? We didn't choose. In the next section, let's uncover why we fall into the same cycles and how mind formations silently recycle our past into our present. Have you ever noticed how life sometimes feels like a rerun? Different faces, different settings, but the same story playing out again and again. You leave one relationship, swear you'll never repeat that pattern, and yet the next one ends the same way. You change jobs, certain. This will be a fresh start only to find yourself clashing with a new boss in the exact same way. Or you tell yourself, next time I'll stay calm, and yet the anger bursts out as if on cue. Why does this happen? Because mind formations don't just color the present, they recycle the past. Think of a song stuck on repeat. The playlist may shuffle the scenery, may change, but the track comes back over and over. That track is the old formation stored deep in your consciousness. Unless you notice it, it will keep pressing play, dragging you into the same cycles no matter how much you want to change. Formations work like grooves in a record. Every time a seed of anger rises and you follow it, the groove gets deeper. Every time insecurity flares and you obey it, the groove gets deeper. Over years, those grooves become so deep that your reactions feel automatic, like water flowing downhill. That's why you think, I don't know why I keep doing this. It isn't weakness. It's the groove of an old formation pulling you along the same path. And here's the subtle part. The more you fight the cycle without awareness, the tighter it grips. You leave the job, but the insecurity follows. You end the relationship, but the fear of abandonment lingers. You move across the country, but the anger still erupts. Because the common denominator is not them. It's the formation inside you. Pause for a moment. Think back. Can you spot a pattern in your own life that keeps repeating? A storyline you thought you left behind only to see it reappear. If so, that's a mind formation running on autopilot. If you feel comfortable, share one of those repeating patterns in the comments. It might sound vulnerable, but you'd be surprised how many others are living the same reruns. Your honesty might help someone realize they're not broken, they're just caught in a formation loop. Here's a story. A man once asked his teacher, "Why do I keep falling into the same kind of heartbreak?" The teacher answered, "Because you keep watering the same seeds. Until you change the garden, the flowers will always be the same." That's the essence of repeated formations. You may change the surface, but until you stop watering the old seeds, the same flowers keep blooming. So what do we do? The first step is seeing the pattern clearly. Not blaming yourself, not blaming others. Just noticing, here it is again. The same groove, the same seed sprouting. That recognition is powerful because the moment you see it, you're no longer trapped in the illusion that life is against me or people never change. You see that it's the formation at work. And once you see the mechanism, you can step out of it. The second step is refusing to water it. Every time the seed rises, anger, fear, insecurity, you breathe, you pause, you let it fade. The groove doesn't get deeper. Over time, it even begins to soften, to fade. This is why mindfulness is described as freedom. Not because it instantly erases the past, but because it stops the past from hijacking the present. Think of it like this. Imagine walking through a forest where the same trail has been walked for decades. It's worn down, easy to follow, almost automatic. But what if one day you pause and step off the trail? The first steps are awkward, the ground uneven. But with time, a new trail forms, and the old one, unused, slowly grows over. That's how new formations replace old ones. That's how cycles break. So the question isn't, why does this keep happening to me? The real question is, which formation am I repeating? And how can I stop watering it? And here's the hope. No matter how deep the groove, no matter how long the cycle, the moment you see it, you've already changed the story. So tonight, as you rest, reflect. What storyline in your life feels like déjà vu? What seed might be replaying, painting new faces onto an old script? And most importantly, what would it feel like to pause just once and step out of the groove? And if repeated formations keep us locked in cycles, what happens when we finally catch them in real time, right in the heat of a reaction? In the next section, we'll explore the art of pausing midstream and how a single breath can change the whole course of karma. Imagine this. You're already mid-argument. Your voice is raised, your heart is pounding, words are spilling out faster than you can catch them. And suddenly, you see yourself. It's like waking up in the middle of a dream. You realize, I'm not calm. I'm reacting. The seed has taken over. Most of the time we don't notice until much later, after the door is slammed, the text is sent, the damage is done. But every once in a while, there's a miraculous moment, a pause inside the reaction itself. Pausing in the middle doesn't erase what already began. The first sparks may already be flying. But even then, a pause changes everything. It's like pulling the plug from a speaker. The music cuts off even if the echo lingers. You don't need to rewind life. You just need to stop fueling it. Think of a campfire. The flames are high, crackling, fierce. But if you stop throwing wood, the fire will die down. Maybe not instantly, but soon enough. That's what pausing mid-reaction does. It doesn't deny the anger or fear that's already risen. It simply refuses to feed it more fuel. Here's how it feels in real life. You're in traffic. Someone cuts you off and your hand shoots toward the horn. In that half second, you catch yourself. Wait. Do I want to keep this fire burning? You take one breath, just one, and in that breath, the current softens. Or you're talking with a loved one. They say something sharp, and you feel the heat rise in your chest. Normally, you'd shoot back. But this time, you pause. You swallow the words not out of suppression, but out of awareness. You breathe. You see the spark. You let it fade. And just like that, the cycle breaks. The beauty is you don't have to be perfect. Even pausing halfway changes the story. Maybe you still spoke sharply, but you caught yourself before it escalated. Maybe you still felt the heat, but you chose not to act it out. That pause is a seed of freedom. A crack in the old groove. I wonder, have you ever had that moment where you were already reacting, but manage to pause even just for a second. If so, share it in the comments. Your small victory might encourage someone else who thinks it's too late once the fire has started. Pausing mid-reaction also teaches humility, because you realize you don't always catch it early. You don't always prevent the spark, but you can interrupt the blaze, and that interruption saves so much suffering both for you and for others. There's a Zen saying, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom. Most people think the space only exists before the reaction begins. But the truth is, the space is always there, even in the middle, even in the heat, even when the words are halfway out of your mouth. The moment you see it, the moment you breathe, the space opens, and inside that space, you discover choice. This is not weakness. It's not losing the argument. It's strength of the deepest kind. The strength to stop repeating the same grooves, to stop letting past formations dictate your present. It's the strength to say, the fire stops here. And over time, this skill changes your life. You begin to trust yourself more, because you know, even when old seeds sprout, you're not doomed to let them rule. You have the power to pause. You have the power to choose. And that single breath, that single pause becomes the birthplace of a new karma, lighter, freer, untangled from the past. So tonight, as you rest, remember it's never too late. Not if you can pause, not if you can breathe, not if you can see even in the middle of reaction that you still hold the power to stop feeding the fire. But if a single pause can change karma, what happens when we start planting entirely new seeds, seeds of patience, kindness, gratitude? In the next section, we'll explore how to cultivate new mind formations, ones that quietly reshape your future from the inside out. We've talked about stopping old mind formations, catching them in the act, and even pausing mid-reaction. But here's the good news. You're not just tearing out weeds, you're planting new seeds. Every moment, every breath is an opportunity to sow fresh formations, ones that bring light instead of heaviness, clarity instead of confusion, freedom instead of cycles. Think of your mind as a vast garden. For years, maybe decades, certain seeds have been watered more than others. Anger, fear, craving, doubt. The soil is full of them and they sprout easily. But just because weeds grow fast doesn't mean flowers can't bloom. It only means you have to choose what to water. Gratitude is a seed. Patience is a seed. Kindness is a seed. And the more you water them, the stronger they grow, until one day they rise naturally, as easily as anger or fear once did. Imagine this, you're standing in line at the coffee shop. The barista is moving slowly, the line is long. You feel the old irritation stirring. But instead of feeding it, you take one breath and think, how nice it is that I can afford this coffee. How kind that someone is making it for me. That's gratitude, a new formation planted. Or you're with a friend and they're venting about their problems. Normally you'd grow restless waiting for your turn to speak. But instead, you lean and breathe and simply listen. That's patience, a new formation planted. And here's the miracle, every time you choose to plant a new seed, you weaken an old one. Because attention is water. If you pour it on kindness, kindness grows. If you pour it on anger, anger grows. It's that simple and that profound. What's one seed you want to plant more often? Gratitude, patience, compassion, something else? Drop it in the comments. Sometimes naming the seed out loud is the first act of planting it. Planting new formations doesn't mean forcing yourself to be fake. It doesn't mean plastering on a smile when you're hurting. It means gently choosing where to rest your awareness. If the mind is full of clouds, look for the small break of blue sky. If the day is heavy, look for the single kind gesture. You don't deny the pain, you simply refuse to let pain be the only thing you water. Over time, this practice changes the entire ecosystem of your mind. Gratitude becomes your default lens. Patience becomes your natural response. Compassion becomes as automatic as irritation once was. And because your formations shape your world begins to change too. Think of someone you know who radiates calm, who seems to handle stress with grace. That's not luck. That's not magic. That's the result of years of planting seeds moment by moment, choice by choice. You can do the same. Every time you pause before anger, every time you choose gratitude over complaint, you're tending your inner garden. And one day, you'll wake up and realize the landscape inside you has transformed. Here's a small practice you can try tomorrow. When you wake up, before checking your phone, place your hand on your chest and whisper one sentence of gratitude. It could be simple. I'm grateful for this breath. I'm grateful for a roof. I'm grateful for one more day. That's it. One seed watered first thing in the morning. See how it colors your day. Planting new formations doesn't require dramatic effort. It requires small, steady choices, like drops of water that over time can carve canyons. And remember, even if the old seeds still rise, they don't erase the new ones. You are both the gardener and the garden. What you water grows. So tonight, as you rest, ask yourself, what seeds did I water today? And what seeds do I want to water tomorrow? Let that question be the quiet compass that steers your inner garden toward peace. But planting new formations also raises a challenge. What happens to the old seeds we've ignored for years, the ones buried deep in the soil of our mind? In the next section, let's explore how forgotten seeds still rise and how awareness can transform even the oldest patterns. Deep in the soil of your mind, there are seeds you haven't seen in years, maybe decades. They sit quietly waiting. Some are seeds of joy, moments of wonder you've forgotten. Others are seeds of pain, old fears, old wounds, old cravings buried so deep you thought they were gone. But nothing in the mind truly disappears. The seeds simply wait for the right conditions to rise again. It's like walking through an attic you haven't opened in years. Dust everywhere, boxes stacked high, the smell of old wood and forgotten time. You crack open one box and suddenly there's a wave of memory, a story you hadn't thought about since childhood. That's what a forgotten seed feels like when it stirs. Sometimes it's triggered by something small, a song on the radio, a smell of cooking, a stranger's laugh, that reminds you of someone you once knew. And suddenly, the seed rises and you're swept into a tide of emotion you can't explain. Most of us respond to these surprises with confusion. Why am I so sad? Why am I so angry? Where did this come from? It feels random, but it isn't. It's just an old seed watered by accident. This is why Buddhist teaching reminds us every mind formation ever planted leaves a trace. Every craving, every fear, every burst of kindness too. And when the conditions line up, those seeds stir no matter how long they've slept. But here's the hope: you don't have to be ruled by them. Seeing a forgotten seed doesn't mean being trapped by it. In fact, noticing it is the first step toward freedom. Because the moment you say, this is an old seed rising, you separate yourself from the automatic reaction. You no longer confuse the past with the present. You breathe, you notice, and suddenly, the old story loses its grip. Have you ever had a moment where something tiny, a smell, a song, a phrase brought up an emotion from years ago? If so, share it in the comments. Your story might remind someone else that they're not crazy. They're just meeting an old seed, waking up. The danger isn't the seed itself. The danger is when we don't recognize it. When we think, this anger belongs to today. This fear is about this person. This craving is about this moment. And so we act it out unaware that we're reliving an old pattern. But the instant you see it, this isn't new. This is an old seed rising, you loosen its power. You give yourself space to choose differently. Some seeds may feel overwhelming, like grief that never healed or fear that still lingers. But even these can be transformed. You don't have to push them away. You don't have to fight them. You simply hold them in awareness the way you'd hold a child who wakes crying from a nightmare. Softly, patiently, without judgment. And in that embrace, even the oldest seeds begin to change. There's a saying in Zen, the past is not gone. It is stored in the seeds of the present, which means that by caring for the seeds, now seeing them, not feeding them, you're healing not just this moment, but the echoes of your entire history. And here's something beautiful: the forgotten seeds aren't only painful. Sometimes they're seeds of joy, of awe, of innocence. A smell of fresh rain may suddenly fill you with wonder, like when you were a child splashing in puddles. A melody may bring tears of sweetness, reminding you of love long past but never lost. These too are seeds, and by noticing them, you water them. By cherishing them, you let joy grow again. So the question isn't whether forgotten seeds will rise, they will. The question is, when they do, will you recognize them? Will you act them out unconsciously, or will you breathe? Smile and let them pass. Because every seed, no matter how old, loses power when it is seen clearly. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, remember your mind is a garden older than you realize. Some seeds are fresh, some are ancient, but none can control you if you learn to see them, even the forgotten ones. And if forgotten seeds can rise so suddenly, then what happens when we choose to meet them with full presence, neither clinging nor rejecting? In the next section, we'll explore the art of mindful observation and how simply watching a formation can transform it at its root. Imagine sitting on a porch watching clouds drift across a wide blue sky. You don't try to grab them. You don't chase them away. You simply sit, breathe, and watch them move. That's the essence of mindful observation. And in the world of mind formations, it's one of the most powerful tools you'll ever discover. When a formation rises, anger, fear, craving, doubt, the instinct is to do something about it. We want to suppress it. Don't be angry, don't be jealous, or we want to indulge it. They deserve my anger. I should act on it. Either way, we're still caught. Mindful observation is the middle path. It doesn't feed the formation and it doesn't fight it. It just sees it clearly, gently, without judgment. Think of it like turning on a light in a dark room. The shadows don't need to be chased out. They disappear on their own simply because you brought in awareness. In the same way, when you observe a mind formation with mindful presence, its power begins to fade. Not because you crushed it, but because you refused to become it. Here's how it looks in daily life. You feel irritation rise. Instead of snapping or suppressing, you breathe and silently say, "Irritation is here." You watch the tightness in your chest, the heat in your face. You let yourself feel it fully without adding stories. And after a while, the irritation melts like ice under sunlight. Or maybe sadness rises. Instead of drowning in it or pushing it away, you breathe and whisper, "Sadness is here." You feel its weight, its texture, and slowly you realize you are not the sadness. You are the awareness holding it. Have you ever tried this, just naming an emotion instead of fighting it? If you have, share it in the comments. Your experience might show someone else tonight that awareness itself can be healing. Mindful observation doesn't mean detachment. It's not cold, not indifferent. It's tender. It's the way you'd sit beside a crying child, calm, patient, present. You don't scold. You don't ignore. You simply stay, and in your staying the child softens. That's how formations respond to mindful observation. They lose their grip when they're seen with compassion. And here's the paradox. The more you observe, the less you need to control. Because the act of seeing clearly is the act of transformation. No extra effort needed. A Zen teacher once said, "Mindfulness is like the sun. Wherever it shines, the flower of understanding blooms and the weeds of confusion shrink." Your job is not to pull out weeds violently. Your job is to let the sun shine. Over time, mindful observation creates trust in yourself. You realize you don't need to fear your anger, your cravings, your fears. They can rise, they can fall, and you can simply watch. You are larger than any formation, and with that realization, peace grows naturally. So tonight, as you lie in bed, notice whatever arises. Thoughts about tomorrow, regrets about today, cravings for comfort. Don't push them away. Don't grab hold. Just see them. Name them softly and let them drift like clouds over a wide sky. This is the art of mindful observation. Simple, gentle, transformative. But observation opens the door to something deeper, the quiet space between stimulus and response. In the next section, let's step into that gap and discover why that single breath of space may hold the key to true freedom. Picture a spark leaping from a match. In most lives, the spark hits dry wood instantly, anger flares, fear surges, craving takes over. We react so quickly, it feels automatic, inevitable. But hidden in every moment is something extraordinary, a tiny gap, a breath, a space between the spark and the fire, between the stimulus and the response. And inside that space lies freedom. Most of us don't notice it. We're too quick, too conditioned. Someone insults us, we lash back. Temptation appears, we grab it. Fear rises, we run. It feels like cause and effect. They said this, I did that. But the truth is, there's always a middle step, a flicker of space where you can choose. Think of a movie reel. What looks like continuous motion is actually a series of frames with tiny gaps of darkness between them. Without those gaps, the film wouldn't flow. Life is the same. Every reaction has a frame, and between frames lies a pause. That pause is your chance to break the pattern, to stop living as a reflex and start living as a choice. Here's an example. Someone cuts in front of you at the store. The spark of irritation rises. In the gap, you take one breath. Instead of snapping, you let the irritation fade. The story changes not because the world changed, but because you stepped into the space. Or a craving hits late at night. The fridge calls. In the warp, you pause. You breathe. Maybe you still grab the snack, but maybe not. And even if you do, the pause gives you awareness. Next time, the space grows a little wider. Have you ever caught that tiny space just long enough to change your reaction? If you have, share it in the comments. Your story might help someone realize they're not powerless. They only need to notice the gap. The more you practice, the bigger the space feels. At first, it's just a split second, barely enough to catch. But over time, mindfulness stretches it. The spark rises, and suddenly, you have a whole breath, a whole choice before responding. And that choice is everything. Because freedom isn't about controlling the world, it's about controlling how you meet the world. The insult may still come. The temptation may still appear, the fear may still rise. But your response is no longer automatic. It's conscious, chosen, free. A teacher once said, "The gap is where karma dies." Because the instant you choose not to follow the old groove, the chain of cause and effect is broken. A new path opens, and that new path begins with something as small as a breath. So tonight, as you listen, practice finding the space. Notice the spark of thought or feeling. Instead of leaping, pause. Breathe. Let the space expand around you. In that silence, you'll discover the freedom that was always yours. And if the space between stimulus and response holds such freedom, what happens when we learn to live more and more from within that space? In the next section, let's explore the practice of resting in awareness itself, where responses no longer rush and life begins to unfold with ease. Imagine lying in a hammock on a summer afternoon. The trees sway, a breeze brushes your skin, birds call in the distance. For once, you don't need to go anywhere or prove anything. You simply rest. That's what it feels like to rest in awareness. No struggle, no striving, no fixing. Just being here, present, alive. Most of the time, we treat awareness like a tool, something we use to control, to judge, to improve. But true awareness isn't about effort. It's about resting back, like leaning into a soft chair and letting life flow through you without clinging or resisting. Thoughts still come. Emotions still stir. Formations still rise. But you watch them the way you'd watch clouds drift across the sky. You don't have to chase. You don't have to run. You simply rest and let awareness hold everything. This is different from zoning out. Zoning out is dull, heavy, disconnected. Resting in awareness is clear, bright, alive. It's like looking at the ocean, noticing every wave, but not needing to surf them all. Here's how it might look in daily life. You're sitting with a cup of tea. Normally the mind races. What's next? What's undone? What should I worry about? But instead, you sip. Slowly notice the warmth in your hands, the taste on your tongue. You let the world be exactly as it is and you rest. Or you're walking in your neighborhood. Instead of scrolling your phone, you notice the color of the sky, the rhythm of your footsteps, the feel of air in your lungs. That too is resting in awareness. Have you ever had a moment like this, where you weren't trying to meditate, but you just felt deeply present, even for a second? If you have, share it in the comments. Sometimes those small glimpses are the doorway to a bigger practice. Resting in awareness isn't about becoming passive. You'll still act, still speak, still make choices. But your choices come from a calm center, not from restless reactivity. Like a tree rooted deeply, your branches move with the wind, but your trunk remains steady. And here's the gift. When you live from this place, life feels lighter. You don't have to control every outcome. You don't have to micromanage reality. You simply meet each moment with openness, trusting that awareness itself is enough. A Zen saying goes, sitting quietly doing nothing. Spring comes and the grass grows by itself. That's resting in awareness. You don't force growth. You don't force peace. You simply sit, breathe, and let life unfold. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. At first, awareness feels like something you have to chase. But slowly, you realize it's always here. You don't have to grab it, you only have to stop running away. And when you rest in it, even for a few breaths, everything shifts. Problems feel less urgent. Emotions feel less overwhelming. Life feels less like a battle, more like a dance. So tonight, as you lie back, let yourself rest. Not in sleep just yet, but in awareness. Notice the rise and fall of your breath. Notice the sounds in the room. Notice the thoughts passing by, and rest in the space that holds it all. This is the heart of practice, not becoming someone new, but resting as who you already are. But what happens when awareness itself becomes our home? When every moment, even the difficult ones, are lived from that still center. In the next section, let's explore how awareness transforms suffering, turning even pain into a doorway to freedom. Pain is part of life. The body aches. People leave. Plans fall apart. No matter how careful we are, no matter how much we prepare, suffering still finds its way to our doorstep. But here's the paradox. Suffering is not created by pain itself. Suffering is created by the way we meet pain, through the lens of our mind formations. Imagine stubbing your toe on the corner of a table. The pain is sharp, real, undeniable. But what happens next? You might think, why am I so clumsy? Why does this always happen to me? Now the pain has turned into suffering because the mind is layering stories on top of it. Awareness interrupts this chain. When you rest in awareness, the toe still hurts, but you don't add the story. You feel the throb, breathe into it, and let it pass. The pain is still there, but the suffering doesn't multiply. Or take heartbreak. The person you love walks away. Pain blooms in your chest, heavy, raw. But then, the mind adds, I'll never be loved again. I'm worthless. My life is ruined. That's suffering, the echo of formations feeding the wound. Awareness says this is grief, this is loss. And in naming it, in holding it, you feel the pain without drowning in the endless commentary. Have you ever noticed this difference between pain itself and the suffering your mind adds on top? If so, share it in the comments. Your insight could help someone tonight realize they don't have to carry both the wound and the weight of the story. The Buddha once said, pain is like being shot with an arrow. Suffering is being shot with a second arrow. The first arrow we can't always avoid. The second arrow, the mental stories, the resistance, that one is optional. Awareness is what stops the second arrow from hitting. In daily life, this can be simple yet profound. Traffic is heavy. The pain, you'll be late. The suffering, the mind saying, this always happens. I can't stand this. Life is unfair. With awareness, you feel the inconvenience, but you don't pile on rage, or your body feels tired. The pain, fatigue in your muscles. The suffering, I'm weak, I'm broken, I'll never get better. With awareness, you let the body rest without turning it into a judgment of your worth. This doesn't mean awareness makes you numb. It doesn't mean you stop caring. In fact, the opposite. Awareness lets you feel pain more honestly, without distortion, without resistance. And strangely, that honesty makes pain softer. Because the truth is, pain hurts. But resistance hurts more. Awareness dissolves resistance, leaving only the clean, raw sensation that comes and goes. Think of sitting in the rain. If you fight it, you tense, complain, shiver. If you relax, accept the drops. Notice the rhythm. The rain is still wet, but the suffering eases. Awareness is like that, turning storms into something you can sit with instead of run from. And here's the deeper gift. Awareness can even turn suffering into wisdom. Because in holding your own pain gently, you begin to understand the pain of others. You see your own wounds and suddenly, compassion blooms. Your suffering becomes the seed of empathy, the bridge that connects you to the human family. So tonight as you rest, notice any pain you're carrying. Physical, emotional, spiritual. Feel it honestly, without adding the second arrow. Breathe into it. Whisper softly, "This is pain. This is part of life, and it will pass." Awareness doesn't erase pain, but it transforms suffering into something bearable, even meaningful. And if awareness can transform our relationship to suffering, what about our relationship to joy? In the next section, let's explore how awareness deepens happiness, turning fleeting pleasures into lasting nourishment for the heart. Most people think awareness is about handling suffering, calming anger, or easing fear. And that's true. Awareness is medicine for pain, but it's also sunlight for joy. Because joy, just like suffering, often slips through our fingers. Not because joy is rare, but because we're too distracted to notice it when it's here. Think about the last time you laughed with a friend. Maybe you felt light for a moment, and then your mind moved on. What's next? What needs to be done? Or the last time you tasted a delicious meal, you enjoyed the first bite, then scrolled your phone through the rest. Joy was there. But without awareness, it passed like a breeze you didn't feel. Awareness turns fleeting pleasures into nourishment. When you really notice joy, hold it. Breathe with it. It sinks deeper. It doesn't just pass across the surface of your life, it soaks into your bones. Imagine holding a warm cup of coffee on a cold morning. Normally you sip absent-mindedly. But if you pause, breathe, notice the steam curling upward, the warmth against your palms, the taste on your tongue. Suddenly, this simple cup becomes joy. Or walking your dog. Instead of checking messages, you feel the tug of the leash, the wag of the tail, the crispness of the air. That's joy. Ordinary, accessible, transformed by awareness. What's one simple thing that has brought you joy recently? A meal, a sound, a moment, share it in the comments. Sometimes naming joy helps it sink deeper, and your example might inspire someone else to notice their own. The Buddha taught that happiness is not only about avoiding suffering, it's also about recognizing the conditions of joy already present. Air to breathe, water to drink, a body that still carries you through the day. a friend, a pet, a sunset. When awareness touches these, joy arises naturally. And here's something surprising. Awareness doesn't just deepen joy, it stabilizes it. Because pleasure without awareness fades fast, often leaving a trace of craving. You eat the cookie and instead of feeling satisfied, you want another. But with awareness, one cookie can feel enough because you truly tasted it. You absorbed the joy instead of chasing more. This is how awareness transforms joy into contentment. Not excitement, not highs that crash, but steady, gentle gladness that doesn't depend on excess. It's like a candle flame, small, steady, quietly illuminating the room. Over time, practicing awareness of joy reshapes the mind just as much as awareness of suffering does. Gratitude grows. Contentment blossoms. The heart learns that joy is not something to chase in the future, it's something to notice in the present. And perhaps the greatest gift, when you learn to rest in joyful awareness, you become a source of joy for others. Your presence is lighter, your smile easier, your energy calmer. You don't just feel joy, you radiate it. So tonight, as you settle down, recall one simple joy from today. A sound, a taste, a moment of connection. Hold it gently in awareness. Let it warm you. Let it remind you that happiness doesn't have to be spectacular, it only has to be noticed. Awareness is the doorway that turns fleeting sparks into lasting light. But awareness of joy leads to a deeper question: if awareness can transform both suffering and happiness, then what is awareness itself? In the next section, let's explore awareness not as a tool, but as the very ground of freedom, the space where all formations rise and fall. Imagine standing on a hillside, looking out over a valley. Clouds drift, winds shift. Sunlight breaks through shadows, return. The landscape keeps changing, but the ground beneath your feet stays steady. That ground is awareness. Not a tool, not a trick, not a technique, simply the open space where everything else happens. Most of the time we confuse ourselves with the weather. We think I'm angry, I'm afraid, I am joyful, but those are just clouds moving through the sky. The deeper truth is I am the sky that holds them. Awareness is that sky, vast, spacious, untouched by whatever drifts across it. This is why the Buddha compared awareness to space itself. Space can hold anything, storms, sunshine, stars, and yet it isn't stained by any of it. In the same way, awareness holds all your thoughts, feelings, and formations without being harmed. When you rest in awareness, you realize you're not your anger, you're not your fear, you're not even your joy. You're the space in which all of these appear and disappear. Think of it this way. You're sitting in a theater. Scenes flash across the screen. Love, loss, comedy, tragedy. You laugh, you cry, you react. But the screen itself, untouched. When the movie ends, the screen is still there, pure, unchanged. Awareness is the screen of your life. No matter how dramatic, the movie awareness remains whole. Have you ever had a glimpse of this, where you stepped back and felt like you were watching your thoughts or emotions instead of being trapped inside them? If you have, share it in the comments. Your story may help someone realize they too are more than the movie playing in their mind. Resting in this ground of awareness changes everything. Because instead of chasing clouds or battling storms, you learn to stand firm as the sky. The storms come, yes. The clouds pass, yes. But the sky remains. And so do you. This doesn't mean you become detached or uncaring. It means you live with a steady heart. You can feel deeply without being drowned. You can love without being owned by fear of loss. You can suffer without being defined by suffering. A teacher once said, awareness is not what you practice, it's what you are. And when you glimpse this truth even for a second, the grip of formations loosens. Because you realize no matter what rises, it will pass. And you, awareness itself, will remain. This is the ground of freedom. You don't need to fix the movie. You don't need to chase away every cloud. You simply rest as the sky wide and clear, holding everything without resistance. And from that place, life becomes lighter. You still act, you still care, you still live fully, but you no longer mistake passing weather for who you are. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine yourself as the sky. Let thoughts be clouds, let feelings be weather, and notice through it all the sky remains vast, open, free. That is the ground of awareness, your truest home. But if awareness is the ground, then how do we keep from forgetting? How do we stay rooted in it even when life pulls us back into storms? In the next section, let's explore the art of remembering awareness and the simple practices that bring us home again and again. Awareness is always here. Like the sky, it never leaves. But let's be honest, most of us forget. We get caught in the storm, pulled into the storyline, swept away by the urgency of the moment. We forget the ground beneath us. We forget that we're the sky, not the passing clouds. And that's okay. Forgetting is human. The practice is simply remembering, coming back again and again. Think about breathing. How many times a day do you forget that you're breathing? Hours pass, and only when you stop and notice do you realize the breath has been here the whole time carrying you. Awareness is the same. It's always here. The work is to remember. So how do we remember? One way is through anchors, simple practices that pull us back to awareness in the middle of daily life. For some, it's the breath pausing to feel one inhale, one exhale. For others, it's sound, the hum of a fan, the rustle of leaves, the rhythm of footsteps. Some use touch the feel of warm water while washing dishes or the steering wheel under their hands while driving. These anchors are reminders, threads that pull us back to the ground of awareness whenever we drift. Another way is through rituals. A cup of tea sipped slowly, A short pause before answering the phone. Lighting a candle at night. Rituals aren't magic. They're doorways habits that remind the mind to return to presence. And perhaps the most surprising way, community. Being around others who practice awareness helps you remember. A friend who breathes before speaking. A group that meditates together. Even reading words like these can be a reminder that awareness is never far. What helps you remember awareness in your own life? Is it breath, sound, nature, music, prayer? Share it in the comments. You might give someone else a new anchor to return to when they forget. The truth is, forgetting will happen. You will get caught. You will lose yourself in anger, craving fear. But every time you remember, you strengthen the path back. It's like walking home in the dark. The first time it feels long, confusing. But each time you walk it again, the route feels shorter, more familiar. Until one day coming home is effortless. That's what remembering awareness is like. At first you forget for days. Then you remember once or twice. Eventually you forget for minutes and remember for hours. And slowly, awareness becomes your natural state, your steady home. A Zen teacher once said, falling out of awareness is not failure. It's part of the practice. Each time you return, you strengthen the muscle of remembering. So don't judge yourself for forgetting. Smile, breathe, and return. That return is the heart of the practice. So tonight, as you listen, maybe you'll notice your mind drift into plans, into memories, into dreams. When you notice, don't scold yourself. Just smile. Say softly, I forgot. Now I'm back. That gentle return is everything. Because awareness isn't about never forgetting. It's about remembering more quickly, more kindly, more often. So here we are. We've wandered through the hidden streams of mind formations. The sparks that rise before thought, the seeds that shape karma, the masks they wear, the silence that appears when they fall away. And maybe along the way, you've noticed something simple but profound. You are not trapped. You are not a victim of old grooves. Freedom begins in the smallest pause, the gentlest breath, the quiet act of seeing. If anything in tonight's journey touched you, if a story, an image, or even a single sentence made you stop and breathe, I'd love for you to share it below. Your words may be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you'd like to walk further with me on this path, remember to subscribe and tap the notification bell so the next time we gather here, you'll be among the first to join. For now, let's not rush. Let the words soften. Let the images fade. Breathe gently like waves against a quiet shore. The day can rest. You can rest. May your night be calm. May your mind be light. And may your heart know the freedom that comes when you see clearly, when you let go, when you rest in the vast sky of awareness. Good night.